Welcome to Bachelor,
a podcast so educational it could be a university class.
With your hosts,
Danielle Dick McHugh,
Kim Hannah,
and Bill Henninger. Welcome, everybody, to Bachelor. We are having pre-recording discussion, so I want to get us started while we're all opinionated and whatnot. How's everybody doing?
Good.
I'm doing swell. The semester's almost over.
Oh, yeah.
You all were like my college students before I started. It's like, and I believe this, and this happened. Then you ask them a question, and they're like, it's okay.
Is this finals week or is next week finals week?
Next week is finals week.
Okay. And I was told not to call it dead week anymore. I got chastised by someone when I was there for calling it dead week. And I was like, I mean, it was dead week when I was there, so.
Yeah, and they had dead week at Iowa State. But yeah, supposedly we're not supposed to talk about we don't talk about Bruno or dead week anymore. So all right. So question of the day. They met families. What is your most awkward meeting family story, or story where you like met someone's parents or met their family? Anything like that. And go.
Mine is he met my entire family at a wedding and then broke up with me 2 weeks later. So I thought, is it me or was it too much all at once? I don't know.
I feel like that's a plus because you can just always blame it on your family, right?
I'm going to say it's them and not me because I'm delightful. So yeah, we'll say it was meeting the entire family at a family wedding. Yeah. And he was not of the Christian faith. And I think when he realized that my mom was doing the service because she is a minister, I think that was kind of I know we've talked about this, but this makes it real.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Danielle?
Well, so I guess that probably my most awkward meeting the family would be both Ryan meeting my family and me meeting his family, because we were like, hey, nice to meet you. We're getting married. So I think that, like, my sister-in-law, she was like, Ryan had reached out to her and said, hey, I'm thinking about getting engaged. And her response was, to who? And so both of those family meetings were just kind of awkward because it was like, hi, nice to meet you. Also, I'm never leaving.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're stuck with
me. Yep.
I dated shortly a girl in Ireland, and her parents, she was like, oh, you can come home and stay at my house. We live in this like, kind of out there. And I was like, oh, this is great. And we'd only been dating for a few weeks, like exclusively. So we take this bus, we get out there, and I introduced myself to her mom, and she's like, oh, what's your name? And I said, Bill. And she was like, Belle? I said, Bill, and apparently like it works both ways. I couldn't understand her because she had a really thick Irish accent, but she couldn't understand my American one. And then so she thought my name was Bowl, Bell, and Brill. And I was like, no, Bill, Bill. And she's like, oh, so you're Catholic? And I was like, no, raised Baptist. And at that point, it was like they were not interested in me. They barely talked to me. Like the next morning, they could not get me out of there. For dinner, she served boiled potatoes and like mutton or like lamb, like steamed lamb. Which may have been a delicacy there, but it seemed really like they were not rolling out the red carpet for me. It was like 2 potatoes, 1 big hunk of lamb, and like, get the fuck out of here, buddy. So, and so then it's like the rest of the night we're like hanging out. It's like you're stuck at the parents' house. They made us sleep in separate rooms, which is fine, I guess. And then it was like next morning, the mom's like, "Does your bus leave at like 9? Aren't you guys gonna?"
Wow.
I do very well with parents. I play well.
Not that one.
Yeah, I feel like parents like me. I'm smiley. I'm interested in stuff.
That's why they put you on those recruitment committees at UNI.
They do. Parents love me when they bring their kids there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Get going. Golden Bachelor. So we're gonna start. I did basically Thereasa second, Leslie first, but Leslie's probably the more interesting one, right? So she shows up to meet the family, and she was really confident. She said, "I'm pretty confident about this." Seems to really wow them. The family seemed to like her. You know, she had the perfect mix of like laughy but also serious. Um, Thoughts about the interaction? And then I thought this was a fun question. What advice would you give somebody? Like, let's say your niece is going to like meet someone for the first time, or your nephew, and just meet the family, and it's serious. What advice would you give them? Like meeting people's family, they're going to the first Thanksgiving.
Like like if they were meeting my own personal family or just a
No,
family.
they're just a student asked me this in class last week, as like Thanksgiving was coming, and it's like, on their way out, like, what advice would you give someone? And I was like, I've never thought about that.
I would ask your significant other, what are the like deal breaker things in the family that you don't want to accidentally screw up? Like if this family is that you take your shoes off immediately after you walk in the door, do you like are they a jokey family? Are they a serious family? Like figure out what the vibe is before you show up.
Get the intel.
Yeah, I agree that like it's hard to come up with general advice. I think that it's rather like talk to your partner about and learn about the specific things that you would need to know about their family, because families are diverse and weird and wild.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would, for if it was a guy, I'd be like annoyingly offer to help with everything. Clear plates, like, because the last thing any woman wants to add is another lazy ass guy around the holidays. And then like the women, I'd be like, make friends with the dad. Like
Mhm.
find dad and like make friends with him. Like, because that's your in right there.
I'm really good with dads.
I can see
Oh,
that. I can see you playing well with dads. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like them being like, she's fun. And your inordinate knowledge of like everything, I think would be.
I've learned based on just talking to my own dad a weird knowledge on trains and like farm stuff and sports, which when you are dating in the Midwest, one of those three things often comes up in conversation with the dad. So I'm able
I
to.
think.
I never understood the train thing, but you're right.
My
Go
dad is fracking obsessed with trains. When we were little, we would go and sit and watch trains.
See, I'm no good. I'm no good with dads, I don't think. I think that I'm better with the moms. I think
ahead.
the dads, I'm like, yo, so work really, really tough, huh? Like, Mondays. What about them? Like, am I right?
Elaine is amazing with dads because she loves sports. And so it's like, as long as you got a dad that like likes sports, it's like, and she's pretty good at like, she can hand out some ribbing. So it's like
Mhm,
she fit into our family quickly.
mhm.
So she did well with the family. The daughter seemed worried that Leslie isn't ready to accept a proposal. Did you get that vibe? I didn't get that. One of them was, I think.
I didn't like the daughters.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Why not?
I don't I don't know. I just didn't I never like the family meetings because I think that they're very like they're trying to get screen. I think they're all trying to get screen time. So they're trying to each have like a shtick or a way to make sure that they get a lot of time on the show. And the way that I liked the granddaughters, I thought the granddaughters talking with Leslie was very sweet and cute. But I don't know, I didn't like the vibe of the daughters. I can't be more specific. I'm sorry.
Danielle?
I don't know that I had that reaction, but when you said that, Kim, I think that I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I didn't. Here's the thing that's interesting. I know that this is not where we feel about him now, but I do think that at the start of the season, we all really liked And now I'm gonna mess up his name because we messed it up once. Gerry. Gary.
Gerry Nicole. We'll just call him Gerry Nicole.
Gerry Nicole.
Gerry.
So we all liked him at the start. And I will say, I did not find like his family. I agree the grandkids were cute, but like I did not necessarily find his family as dynamic as I found him at the start. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I like the blonde-haired daughter, the darker-haired daughter, and as you know, I refuse to learn names until I've known you for at least a year. I thought the brown-haired daughter, I didn't like her as much. I got the vibe that Kim's talking about. The blonde-haired one seemed much more like about Gerry and what does this mean for Gerry? Gerry, Gerald,
Gerry.
Gerald the giraffe.
Gerry. So they go to the last chance date, and oh man, now we've really I can't. Gerry is off.
It's so painful. It was so painful to watch.
Yeah, which we later find out is because he says he has to decide that he's decided she's not the one. But in the moment, he says, you know, I just have a big decision. I'm weighing it on my mind. So then he leaves, and then he comes back after he like sits down on a stair and cries, which solidarity, Jer. I've been there too. So how do you think he handled that?
Terribly.
Terribly? What would you have liked him to do, Kim?
I liked that they did the ending the night before at her hotel for exactly why she said. Thank you for not making me get all dressed up and get humiliated on a beach in front of millions of viewers. Like, at least she was in her space. She could boot him when he was done, telling her, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. After you break up with someone and then you keep talking about how amazing they are, leave. Just go. You're not helping. Just get the hell out of there.
Yeah, you're really saying that to make yourself feel better. Like you're trying to like.
You're not helping the situation at all. So I appreciate that he did do it the night before so that she didn't have to go through that embarrassment. And I think that's how The Bachelor should do it moving forward. I think if you're not the one getting proposed to, you should do it the night before for exactly what Leslie was talking about. But it was so obvious that whole night that he didn't know how to tell her she wasn't it. And she didn't pick it up at first, and then she figured it out, and then it was really awful to watch.
So I have a controversial opinion on all of this.
Hot take.
So I didn't get to watch this until yesterday, so a couple of days after it aired. And so a lot of press had kind of come out, and it was clear that, you know, Gerry was getting a lot of criticism. And here's the thing. I think that he deserves this criticism, except for I feel like this is in line with every other season of The Bachelor that we've watched, right? And I think that some of the reasons that people are so mad is because it was a Golden Bachelor. We expected different behavior, or like, I know like some people were so mad that he like slept with both women. And like, I felt like actually what makes me mad is that this like followed the narrative of every other one. And we want to see something different. But I think that because of his age, people had different expectations. Despite, and I know we've talked about this a lot, turns out people don't learn that much. Like that as humans, like I think this is one of the biggest things that I'm still like learning about adulthood is like you're like, holy crap, like I never get it figured out. Like it's just like either you're learning something for the same like for the first time, or like you just keep learning the same lessons over and over again. And I feel like part of people's outrage about Gerry is that they had different expectations of him because of his age, and that those expectations were probably problematic expectations.
They thought he would be better because you want men to mature as they get older and not act like 22-year-olds.
So she Yeah,
They
she did
kind of always.
allude. Sorry, say that again, Kim. I talked over you.
I don't remember what I said. You hope that they eventually grow out of being a 22-year-old boy and you find out, in fact, that's not the case. Now, I read somewhere, and maybe I've brought this up in another episode because they're all blurring because I've had wine. But I read somewhere that the age you are the last time you dated is the age you are the next time you start dating again. So for Gerry, he's dating like a 17-year-old a little bit because that's what we thought until this week when all the news hit. But we thought he was dating more like maybe a 17-year-old because that's how old he was when he and Tony were dating. I don't know if that's true. I might have read it in like Cosmo or something. Bill saying no.
Well,
You
I
just
will give
ruined everything I've told
I will
myself.
give you the academic answer on that. There is no evidence to support that hypothesis, but I don't know if there's counter evidence. I do.
Can I say anecdotally, I think it's true based on my own experiences?
I think that I have a feeling that more likely there is a certain type of person that gets stuck in that way, and then there's other learn. Like I would like to think so. Elaine and I started dating when I was like 24, 23. I would like to think if she passed away or we got divorced and I started dating, I would have learned enough about how people like to be treated that I would be better at dating now than I was at like, because you learn about your partner and what your partner wants, and so you'd hope you'd be able to apply that. I feel like probably there's like men out there though that it's just like he did allude that she alluded that he said something in the fantasy suite or said some things that made her think that she was the one, which again brings me back to my belief that this was actually just a remake of the Meatloaf song Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. And he was just like, I'm going to get you into bed and I'm going to say everything. And the end of time came and he let her go.
Mm-hmm. So I also go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I really empathize with him kind of talking about like how would you approach this and how can you approach this ethically, because I do think that the thing that made me so uncomfortable in the discussion afterwards, and when he got to talk to Leslie again on the After the Rose, or I don't know, it the way that they do it now is so back and forth. It's not like, but is that it's all about his journey, right? And the way that the show is sort of framed is that it is about his journey. But ultimately, this is two people's lives. And so like I understood with him when he kind of explained, hey, look at like I just wanted to show up 100% for each person. And I kind of empathize. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a moment where all of a sudden you're just like, and he's like, I thought that it was, I didn't know if it was you or if it was her. And then all of a sudden I just knew. I kind of like empathize with that to a certain extent. Right. But like, I don't like this, like, it's just about my journey because I'm the lead. And so like I don't have to have any sort of like, I don't know. I feel like it lets them off the hook of taking full responsibility for the consequences of how they handle things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that one of the reasons he changed his mind about Leslie is because she kind of alluded to this too. She's never had a successful relation. Like she's divorced twice. And he and Thereasa and his girls said the same thing. Like, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. They have the exact same backstory. So when he said "till death do us part," Leslie kind of like, oh my God, I've never had that before. And they both have because they were married until their spouse died. And I kind of got a vibe that he picked up that she kind of freaked out about the death do us part because that's never been her experience.
I feel like till death do us part is like a real misery creator, right?
Oh, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think marriages should be like a car lease. I think I've said this before. Like you should both every 5 to 10 years get together and be like, are we re-upping this thing? I think it would make everybody work a little harder, right?
Mhm.
Because if you are like somebody who is industrious and it's like, well, my partner said until death do us part, like I can do shit that makes them mad. I don't have to look out for them, right? You'd hope your partner has your best interest, but if it was like every 10 years we got to get together and be like, we gonna do this for 10 more? We cool? We only got down to 5. I think people would have like they would really look out for their partner's interest more.
I mean, you can buy rat poison at Lowe's, so death do us part can be pretty fast if you try
I've
hard
seen
enough.
enough date lines that I will never go on a cruise. Somebody always
Or hiking by yourself with a spouse, because they'll push you off the side of a mountain.
Daniela's kid, she doesn't have time for date lines. So she's like, know each other? We're like, oh yeah.
There's a really good cult mini series on HBO right now too, if anybody's interested.
What is it?
Oh shoot, I knew you were gonna ask. Love of God or God of Love or something. It's crazy. It's 3 episodes. The last episode just came out this past Monday, so it's brand spanking new, but it's wild.
Do we think that Leslie is gonna end up as the first woman Golden Bachelor? Because Danielle, you were talking about stories, and I do feel like what they really like to do is like once they got someone who people really like bonded with their story, then it's like, well, this was part of their journey. But you're right. Up until they name them, it's like your feelings don't really matter. It's the person who is the principal's feelings matter.
I don't know if it'll be her or Faith.
Oh yeah.
Leslie might not want to like put herself through this again.
I think Leslie makes for better TV.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I really liked Leslie. I never thought that her and Gerry were a very good match. I did see the chemistry kind of as the show developed, but I remember thinking, especially near the beginning, that she just felt like too cool for him. Like I found there are just things that were endearing about Gerry. I felt like he really felt like just like a guy from Indiana. That's like, like and I like appreciated that about him, but like she always just had like this kind of edgy, cool vibe that didn't quite match like pickleball Gerry.
Which is why I think Thereasa is the better fit for him and that he did make the right choice.
Well, and there was an article going around that I think you all got it forwarded. Elaine sent it about kind of like he really had it wasn't like he was this heartbroken man who never looked at a woman after his wife passed away. And then like the show came along and this is his lifeline, which Elaine and I have talked a lot about this. Like I would still care as much about the show if he was like, I've dated a little bit, but for some reason ABC's like, nah, we got to make this a freaking fairy tale, guys. We got to like really make it seem like he's like lived in a basement and hasn't shaved and then he sprung out this like yeah. And then he like was dating someone and had lots of like he seemed like he was very like past boundaried with her and the relationship was what I got from the article.
But this show has always been kind of like pure in the way that and I mean that in a critical way, right? And it's always projected this sort of like fairy tale romance where like they have been drawn to leads that they want to like they don't want a lead that's like, hey, this person was a real hoe. Let's watch them find love, right? It's always like in some ways in order to make Gerry the character that they wanted him to be, I think they needed to almost recreate this virginal character.
Right.
And I actually think that's very on brand.
Yeah.
Franchise.
I'm not mad that he dated someone 3 months after his wife died. I think that especially men who have been married since they were teenagers, he probably didn't know how to be by himself. And so I'm not mad that he dated someone right away. I'm upset with how it seems like
Research-based.
maybe
Well,
it ended.
that statement you made, there is research evidence for that one. So
What?
about how he was men who have been married their whole life, it's like they're just kind of helpless and they basically start dating another woman just because it's like they need the help. Yeah.
They don't know how to do jack squat.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad about that part of it. I'm mad about how it ended is true. That pisses me off. But it also makes sense why the women who stayed the longest on his season were the tiny women who were super fit. But yeah, they can't, it's like they aren't allowed to have a backstory unless the backstory is they're a widow.
Yeah.
Or they're, yeah.
So, spoiler alert, he ends out with Thereasa. Everything goes great. Like they kept making this out like it was going to be a surpriser. A spoiler, it didn't. And then they say that they're going to get married in January. Apparently, yeah. I was like, do we do a podcast? Maybe we all get drunk and just record the podcast, like just the snarkiness. But let's do a pre-mortem. If people don't know what a
So
pre-mortem is, we do this like when we do a project and we say before we even start it, why is it going to work? Why is it not going to work? So why do they work out? Why do they not work out?
I kind of think that they're going to work out.
yeah.
I don't know. There's ways that I think that they match and they're really excited. And like, and yeah, I think that sometimes things work out if you just decide for them to. And I think that I will say this is where I think if you're far enough in life and you've kind of learned that like in order for relationships to work out, sometimes it's just a matter of making it.
Who's there when you're ready?
Yeah. I don't know.
I have to say, I do not enjoy weddings. So if we do watch the show and do a podcast about it, I will have to be drunk. I love wedding receptions. I hate wedding ceremonies. I am like, I just feel so uncomfortable watching other people do that.
I always love when my friends are like, "Hey, we couldn't invite you to the ceremony, but you can come to the reception." It's like, oh.
Yes, that's all I wanted in
this is why I like love you both, but also you know that like I'm the person that's like over there just sobbing. Wedding is so beautiful.
Oh my God.
I love it.
I'm always the one like I'm so uncomfortable hearing this right now. Like I don't like
I'm the one when they start playing canon in D. I'm like, let's up the like if they play it really slow, it's like I kind of want to walk over to the piano, just like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like let's get the march going, guys.
I have promised my mother I will give her 2 weeks notice before my elopement, and I promise, and I have other people that I have promised I will send out an email and say we're going to be at this park at this time. If you want to come, great, but otherwise we'll see you at the restaurant at 3:45. Like, ugh, no thank you. What were we talking about? Oh, do we think they're actually going to make it?
I'm like loving all of this.
Here's my question. Go ahead.
I think that they'll make it, but I don't care about them anymore. Like, I don't care about their relationship now that the show is over. I don't need updates. I think they're going to be in the audience of every single freaking After the Rose from here until eternity, just like Charity and her guy and Zach and What's Her Bucket and Braden was in the audience. God bless him. And Rachel, like, they're going to be in the audience. We're going to see them, but I don't need updates. I don't care.
Here's my theory. I think Thereasa is a secret boss ass bitch. And I think she is not going to do well. If what you read in that article is true, I do not see the two of them being able to coexist well. And I have a feeling that it's just going to come to a head. Also, like, she's got money that she earned, and I'm going to be really interested how they do finances.
Because I don't think he has very much. Well, he has Bachelor money now, but
I don't know, but certainly he should not come in assuming he's just going to be able to use her money. That's ridiculous, right? I hope.
I also think it's fascinating that they keep talking about that he's from Indiana. He's from Indiana. He's from Davenport, Iowa. Like he's from the Quad Cities and only like in the last 10 years was in Indiana. But they don't talk about that at all.
When did Iowa become less cool than Indiana? That's what I want to know. It's bad when they're like
football season. Oh,
it'll be a lot cooler if we say it's from Indiana, guys, instead of Iowa.
I mean, what's wrong with the Quad Cities? There's 4 cities, 4 times as much fun.
We ready to move on to Bachelor in Paradise? Does anyone have any final comments?
I thought to that season.
I thought the Golden Bachelor was cool. I hope they do it again.
I did too.
It had stuff that none of the other ones have had. And it was a little shit up.
I love how much the women. I think it'll be fascinating to see it when it's a bunch of men, because I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy watching a bunch of 70-year-old men. But it'll be interesting to see how those guys bond, if they do, versus how the women all bonded.
Drinking
because I loved that almost more than anything else in Golden Bachelor, is how awesome all the ladies were.
They're gonna be trying to get him to like the next date, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, train."
They're gonna go watch. What if the mansion is near a train line? They'll never get them to come for the rose ceremony. They'll just all be outside watching the trains go by, talking about the engines.
Or God forbid, a construction site where they all just stand around. That a backhoe? Oh my God!
What are you gonna do with that? That's a big, powerful, and that's like 14 horse. I don't know engines. That's 14 horsepower.
Why aren't you using a Kubota? All right. So we pick up where Jess and Blake are melting down. I have thoughts about this. I am not Team Blake. I feel like he is, in the true sense of gaslighting Jess, because he keeps bringing up that he would be so into this relationship if she had been more into it at the beginning. And I wanted your guys' opinions on that. I felt like it's like this like way of basically being like, so why even bring it up, right? Just leave the show. If you can never get over that, what's the point?
Go ahead, Danielle, because I think we all know I hate Blake and I have nothing positive to say about him. I shouldn't say hate. I dislike immensely.
I mean, I felt very similarly in that I felt that he could have just been vulnerable in that moment and say, like, it hurts me because I know that you aren't as into me as I am into you, and that sucks. But also, like, I've been in enough relationships to know that it's time to walk then. Like, he doesn't need to blame her. Like, he could have just been hurt, right? And but I also think that he was right about her not being as into him.
Yeah.
I think that he was right in that observation. I just think that rather than blaming her for how she felt, he could have just owned that he was actually hurt by how she felt or didn't feel.
Kim?
Yep, I agreed. Bye. Please, please, please stop being in the franchise. We do not want you back.
But his eyes,
I do not want you back.
He does have.
You're just sad. It's sad at this point. Like, dude, get on Match.com. There's got to be girls sliding into your DMs all the time. Do that instead.
So then we see Mercedes and is it Taylor or Tyler? I don't know.
Gordon?
Tyler,
yeah.
Tyler. Yes.
Yeah, everyone knows Tyler isn't into our girl Mercedes, Iowa represent. She didn't say she was from Indiana just to be cool.
Did not say she was from Indiana. She's very proud of being from Iowa, as opposed to Gerry.
But apparently everybody but poor Mercedes has realized that Tyler's not that into her. She kind of confronts him and he's like, yeah, I'm not that into you, but I want to stay in paradise a little bit longer. So can we just hang? I think he said it a little bit different, but that was my thoughts. And go Mercedes, she was like, no, You will not be getting my rose. And then Tyler leaves. Any passing thoughts for Tyler?
Bye.
I think that Tyler is someone who is really concerned with being nice, and that being nice actually keeps him from doing the nice thing.
Yes.
Oh.
I also
I
think
like
he has a persona he wants to manage on the show. Like there is a like persona that he wants to put out there. And I think it's nice guy Tyler, right?
Mhm.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
It's like, but then he doesn't do the thing he doesn't do the kind thing. He wants
Yes.
to be nice, but he doesn't do the kind thing. Ooh,
Yes.
that's good, Bill. That's good.
That's deep. That's really
By the
deep.
way, I'm just gonna take a little break off here since I'm in charge and I've had 2 drinks. My
I'm
students,
like the only sober one here, and I've
my
been
students,
laughing the whole
I'm
time.
mostly sober. It's fine.
my 220 odd students have an extra credit opportunity, and it is to listen to one of these episodes and then write a paper about it. So if you're listening now, hi, FAMSER 1010 student. Uh, Thank you for listening. And now I'm going to continue.
Coolest professor ever.
Will you let us read the papers?
I don't think I can do that. That's a FERPA violation.
If you black out their names,
Redact everything.
can you redact any identifying traits?
I want to know if they're complimentary or if they're like, you guys should really stop doing the podcast.
Well, these students are doing it for extra credit, so they GD better be complimentary. All right, so Rachel Nicole seems locked in on Jordan. He isn't that into her. Hint, he's into Mercedes. So now we have a 5-alarm cluster F, and everyone's scrambling for a date.
It was
Braden,
awesome.
Braden and Tanner hit up Jess.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor hits up Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
What are our thoughts on this whole musical chair thing that happened?
I was like, go Jess. All these boys are just like, I mean, and she knew exactly what they were doing. So she was
Right.
handling herself very well. But I was like, you just had to deal with stupid Blake, and now you get all this new attention. And I was very excited for her. But I was also very glad with what she decided to do at the end.
I actually can see her and Tanner being a decent match, but I will say there's a part of me that's like, if at this point you aren't paired up, just go home.
That's kind of
We're just too close. There's like, you're just gonna, all you're doing is saving yourself a week, but in their time, it's probably like what, 2 days?
right.
But it's 2 more days on the beach.
That's true. And I feel like if you get sent home, I wonder if in like their minds that's some type of like nick against you to get on the next, get on Bachelor Bowl or like the Winter Games or like all of those weird shows they've tried.
Does your salary for the show depend on how long you stay on the show? So is it like an adjusted scale? So they want to stay on as long as possible because they make more money.
Fighting for that money.
It's the American way.
Money and Instagram followers, I suppose.
I guess I feel like she's done well for herself. People on Instagram really like her. Like she's kind of gotten this like injured baby deer kind of people like that about her. So. Danielle, you really furrowed your brow on that one. Maybe you don't agree.
No, I totally agree, and I don't understand the attraction to it, right? Because I do think that I think that she is very nice. Actually, like her and Tyler, they made out and then nobody talked about it. And actually, them as a couple made tons of sense to me.
They would just sit around. They'd sit around not having arguments and like just gritting their teeth and like
they'd wake up in 50 years and be like, all right.
They'd be a really good upper middle class WASP couple where it's like they never talk about anything bad. They like donate, like,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. I think that she is a nice person. I think she's got great skin, and I think I also just find her. I tend to be attracted to feistier women. right? Like my friends are a little less passive than that. We tend to be, we got our opinions. And I think that I don't necessarily like, that's something for me about her that's like a turn off.
But she's also very young. She might not have found her feistiness yet.
That's true.
Get it, girl. Go find your feisty.
Find your feisty and embrace it.
Stand up to Blake and is like, I want to explore other options. And then Blake did what dickhead guys do and just like, grounded into her every chance he got. And he would never say, no, I'm not cool with that. He just like every chance he could, he would bring it back up and make her feel bad. So.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to the rose ceremony. Jess goes with Tanner, which sends Braden home. So
he had a tear. Did you see? He had a solitary tear down his cheek. It was so sad.
I got to be honest, that guy hung around way longer than I thought he was for how annoying he is. Like
he's like grown on me.
Really?
I'm like kind of grown. Like I've got like a special little place in my heart for Braden now.
He's becoming.
So because I watched the shows out of order, I already knew he was gone when I watched Golden Bachelor and he was in the audience. And I was like, of course he's in the audience. Of course he's in the audience. He's going to milk this franchise as long as he can.
I think that's one of the things I like about him is that he's so like audaciously transparent about like, yes, you know.
Like I said, he is the type of guy, if there was a TV show about my life, they would bring him in as comic relief. And just like he'd walk in like, hey Bill, what's the happy half? I'd be like, get fucked, Braden. Like,
eat bricks.
Yeah, please. Like, and then and that would be like then the laugh track would hit and he'd be like, all right.
He's your Urkel.
Yeah, he'd be like my Urkel, yeah.
Oh.
But then Jess gives her rose to Tanner, but Taylor thinks he got called and is like, oh, and she's like, oh, I didn't say your name. Is that the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened? That's
probably not, but it was pretty uncomfortable.
It was my favorite part of the whole show. Like, I like wanted a moment like that in the Golden Bachelor, and then I got it in Bachelor in Paradise. It never disappoints.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the first time a contestant has stepped forward and thought their name was called. Jesse Palmer actually called the wrong person at one point when he was the Bachelor and had to like the person. Yeah.
I mean, I think what made it so cringy too is that like it's Jess, and then she felt so bad, and like it was both hard to watch, but definitely my favorite part.
I did think it was funny too, because it's like I don't think Taylor really had much of an interaction with her, right?
No.
Very odd that he's like, oh, okay.
Oh
yeah.
At least not what we saw, at least not what they showed us.
Yeah.
Well, and Taylor and Tanner, they don't sound the same. I mean, they start the same, but they don't end the same. So he was running on adrenaline or margaritas or something.
What's funny is the two guys look exactly the same, though.
They do.
I thought was like maybe she'd be like, "Oh no, I did mean you." But staunch. So then Jess, no, so then Mercedes goes with Jordan, which absolutely shakes Rachel Nicole. And so thoughts on Mercedes and Jordan? I think they're well paired.
I like him. We don't know anything about Jordan, so I like him.
You like him? Yes. We haven't been able to figure something out.
He's not stood out, but he hasn't been on the show very long.
Yeah.
You all, I have so many feelings for poor Rachel Nicole, though.
Yeah.
I feel like
put him in there. Yep.
I feel like she's had a really rough go at it, and I didn't like love her as a bachelorette. I didn't love her as a bachelorette, but I will say I think that you can really see her trying on this show, and it just wasn't working. And I had respect for her just deciding to leave. And I also just like I like felt more for her in that moment than I felt for poor Taylor when he stepped forward in the wrong spot. But yeah.
I agree, Danielle. I liked her more by the end of this than I did in any other of the show. And I also felt like it was kind of like when you're at a job and you're like, I need to quit, I need to quit. And you have that moment like midway through your shift and you're like, I'm done. I felt like that's where she was like, this is just not working out. Or like when you've been dating someone for a while and you're like, I don't know where it's going. And then they say something really stupid and you like have this clarity and you're like, we will be broken up by the end of this night. And she,
Yes.
I think similarly to Blake, this might not be the right venue for her for finding love.
so you think that's the
Absolutely.
last time we see her?
No, of course not.
I think she'll.
You know what I really appreciate about her is actually what I appreciate about Brayden is that she is just sort of like, I'm going to open myself to like experiences in a way that I don't know that we saw as much on her season. I thought it was so apparent here that she's like, all right, that was tough. Like, I'm going to try it again. And I'm like going to dance in the sand and I'm going to have a good time. And then she just like really give herself to the experience. And then she'd wake up the next day. Another person was like, well, that was okay. And she'd be like, this is great. And I'm like, oh.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Lessons learned.
I think it's fantastic that Sam from Canada is probably going to end up engaged at the end of this thing with the most annoying, boring guy ever. But they seem to be really happy together. And so I say, go.
Sometimes there's something to be said for the annoying, boring guy. Just catch him up.
She really seems to like him. So that's nice.
You all, I forgot that there are any couples that could even remotely have the potential to be engaged until they showed the preview for the next episode. I was like, oh, there are like couples that have actually been together for a while, but I don't know what's happening with them. So I guess my lesson though is be kind, not nice.
Oh,
yeah. Can I have another lesson learned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bachelor in Paradise was very successful as a 1-hour episode, and they should do that moving forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is no reason for it to be 2 hours. I don't know if this is a lesson, but I predict that Kat and John Henry get engaged, and then at some point she eats him like a praying mantis eats him. And he's just like, yeah, underwater welding, and then he's gone.
You all, I loved the little bit at the end where he talked about peeing. I was like, I've never believed in a couple more than I believe in him.
They seem like
right now.
So I talk in class sometimes about like, when you date someone, it's like you have big talks, but you also have lots of really stupid ones. And I feel like that's a really good clip of like a good, like they seem to both really be enjoying this talk about like holding pee and not having to hold pee. I also just want to know if he's ever had a conversation where he hasn't talked about coconuts or underwater welding. Like those are the two things that guy can talk about on the show. Nothing else.
Well, if you got your niche, you stick to it.
Yeah. Don't learn new things. Just stick with what you know.
All right, city shout out. I did Amsterdam. Short story about this. As I was like recovering from my kidney surgery, I got a email from, I think it's KLM is the national airline for the Netherlands, and it was like experience a Dutch Christmas market this year. And I don't know why, but I've been obsessed with going to a Dutch Christmas market. And you're all looking at me like you're waiting, like, did I buy a ticket? I haven't bought a ticket, but every day I search and the price keeps going down and I keep setting a price. And then it's like, I'm going to buy this ticket and I'm going to leave next week.
I bet there's one in Pella.
No, I don't see I do not want to go to a US like this is an irrational thing that I've been obsessed with. And so every morning I get up and I check the ticket and it gets lower. And it's like twice hit the thing where I'm like, I'm booking it. And so anyways,
I thought you were going to say KLM was going to be our first sponsor.
Oh, that'd be Yeah, so
We're going to Europe, guys.
Amsterdam is wonderful if you can go travel there. They have outstanding food. They have the Anne Frank House, which you should go do. They have the Dutch Resistance Museum. They have the International Cheese Museum. Obviously, they have who's the Dutch painter?
Van Gogh.
They have the Van Gogh Museum, which is
Van
nice.
Gogh, I think is how you actually say it.
They have the Red Light District where you can do just about any type of sin you've ever wanted to do. But also they have wonderful food there.
Do we have listeners in Amsterdam?
We do. We've had 25 downloads from Amsterdam.
Thank you, Amsterdam.
Thank you, Amsterdam. Damn, that's amazing.
Amsterdam. Other
I
announcement.
bet they never hear that, and I bet they love it.
This is our 100th episode. Randomly. And the last episode, we hit 10,000. We went over 10,000 listeners for our audio stream. We're almost to 19,000, including our streams on YouTube. So
nice.
Wow.
Routine. Whoop whoop.
And I think we have one more episode, so we'll see you next week. And everyone stay safe.
Yeah.
Bye.
You have been listening to Bachelor
with your hosts, Danielle Dick McGee,
Kim Hanna,
and Bill Hennig.
All thoughts and opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the person who spoke them.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to the show, leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Also, please share with your family, friends, colleagues, and other ardent Bachelor fans.
If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at bachademia@gmail.com.
Or on the Twitter with the handle @Bachelor.
Thanks for listening.